"Ethan, I love you, but I think I should choose Daniel." She said it so calmly that, for a few seconds, I thought I had misunderstood her. We were standing beneath the warm lights of the restaurant where I had planned to propose again. The ring was still inside my coat pocket. Daniel sat 3 tables away, pretending not to watch us. I looked at Claire, the woman I had loved for 7 years. Then I looked at him. "Are you asking me to fight for you?" I asked quietly. Claire lowered her eyes. "No." That one word hurt more than anything else. I had spent years fighting for her, without realizing that one day she would simply stop fighting for me. Daniel had money, confidence, and the kind of polished life Claire had recently become fascinated by. I had none of those things. What she didn't know was that the company she thought Daniel was building by himself had quietly been using my designs for nearly 2 years. And she didn't know that I had already received an offer that could change my entire life. But I didn't tell her. For once, I didn't explain. I took the ring from my pocket, stared at it for a moment, and put it back. "All right," I said. Claire's head snapped up. "That's it. What else should I say? I thought you would be angry." "I am." "Then why aren't you stopping me?" I looked at her for a long moment. "Because if you need another man to prove that I'm worth choosing, I don't want to be chosen anymore." Her face went pale. I stood up. Daniel immediately approached us. "Claire." She looked between us. I stepped aside. "Go." Daniel hesitated, perhaps expecting an argument. There wasn't one. Claire picked up her handbag. As she walked away with him, I heard her whisper, "Ethan." I didn't turn around. That was the first time I chose myself. And I still didn't know that it would be the most important decision of my life. The drive home was silent. My apartment looked exactly as I had left it that morning. 2 coffee cups sat beside the sink. Claire's sweater hung over the back of a chair. I picked it up. For years, little things like that had made me smile. That night, they only made the room feel smaller. I sat on the floor beside the couch and remembered the first time I met her. We were 19. She had dropped a stack of books outside the university library, and everyone walked past her. I had stopped to help. She had laughed and said, "You must be the only decent person here." I had answered, "Don't decide that yet." She smiled. Too late. For years, I believed that smile was the beginning of our forever. I didn't realize forever could end with someone saying, "I choose him." My phone rang. "Claire." I watched it vibrate until the screen went dark. Then a message appeared. "I need time. Please don't make this harder." I almost laughed. Make it harder? I had spent years making everything easier for her. When her mother needed surgery, I worked nights to help with the bills. When Claire wanted to finish graduate school, I postponed my own plans. When she wanted to move downtown, I gave up the apartment I loved. And when Daniel appeared with his expensive car, business connections, and effortless confidence, I told myself not to be insecure. Maybe I had been too patient. Maybe I had confused love with endurance. The next morning, Claire's mother called. "Ethan, what happened?" Claire chose Daniel. Silence. Then she said, "She'll come back." I stared out the window. "Maybe. You love her." "I do." "Then don't give up." I closed my eyes. "No, Mrs. Bennett. I'm not giving up on Claire." She sounded relieved. Then I finished the sentence. "I'm giving up on being someone she can leave whenever she finds something she thinks is better." She had no answer. Neither did I. But for the first time in 7 years, I made a decision without asking whether Claire would approve. I opened my laptop. For 2 years, I had been developing a modular battery system in secret. It was small, efficient, and designed for emergency power in rural communities. Everyone at work thought I was just a quiet engineer who did his job and went home. Even Claire thought my late nights were ordinary work. They weren't. 3 days earlier, an international clean energy company had offered to fund my prototype. Their final meeting was scheduled for Monday. I had nearly rejected the offer because Claire wanted us to move abroad with Daniel's social circle. Now I open the email again. "We believe your technology has commercial potential. If you're willing to lead the project, we want you on the team." I read it twice. Then I replied with 3 words. "I'm interested. Let's talk." For the first time in years, I felt something other than heartbreak. I felt possibility. But the hardest part was still waiting for me, because Claire had not yet realized that I had stopped chasing her. And when she finally noticed, she was going to learn that silence could be much more frightening than anger. The first week after Claire chose Daniel was strangely peaceful. Not happy, just quiet. I stopped sending morning messages. I stopped asking whether she had eaten. I stopped checking whether she got home safely. I stopped reminding her about appointments. I stopped being available every time her name appeared on my screen. At first, Claire didn't seem to notice. Then she started noticing everything. On Tuesday, she texted, "Did you remember to pay the internet bill?" I stared at the message. The bill had always been in my name. I replied, "You'll need to handle it now." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. 5 minutes later, "You're really doing this?" I put my phone down. That evening, Daniel posted a photograph of himself and Claire at a rooftop restaurant. The caption read, "Some choices are worth making." Claire looked happy. I didn't feel angry. That surprised me. A month earlier, that photograph would have destroyed me. Now I simply closed the app. The next day, I met with the clean energy company. Their director, Miriam Shaw, studied my prototype for nearly an hour. "You built this yourself?" "Yes." "Why haven't you patented it?" I hesitated. "Money." She smiled faintly. "No. Fear." I looked up. She was right. I had spent years believing that if I kept my head down and protected everyone around me, eventually life would reward me. But talent hidden forever was almost the same as talent wasted. Miriam placed the prototype on the table. "You don't need to hide anymore." That sentence stayed with me. I signed a preliminary agreement 2 weeks later. The work was difficult. My first field test failed. The second overheated. The third worked for 19 hours before shutting down. I went home exhausted, but I wasn't empty. For the first time, my failures belonged to me. So did my victories. Meanwhile, Claire's life with Daniel began to crack in ways I couldn't see. I only heard about them later. At first, she had believed Daniel was simply ambitious. Then she discovered that several of the projects he bragged about leading had actually been designed by employees beneath him. One of those employees was using a framework suspiciously similar to my old research. Claire didn't connect it to me. Not yet. She called me one night. I answered. "Ethan." "Yes." Her voice was softer than I remembered. "How are you?" "Busy. That's all." "What do you want me to say?" She paused. "I don't know." I almost smiled. "Neither did I." Then she asked, "Have you met someone?" "No." Another silence. "Are you angry with me?" I was. "And now?" I looked at the prototype sitting on my desk. "Now I'm tired." She breathed out slowly. "I miss talking to you." "I understand. Can we meet?" I thought about it. "Why?" "I just want to see you." That answer would have been enough for the old me. Not anymore. "Claire, you chose Daniel." "I know. You should give that choice a chance." Her voice cracked. "Are you really telling me to stay with him?" "Yes." "Why?" I stared at the dark window. Because I already knew something she didn't. Daniel wasn't building the future she imagined. He was building a reputation on other people's work. And soon, that reputation was going to collapse. "I think you should finish what you started," I said. She whispered, "You sound different." "I am." "What happened to you?" I smiled sadly. "Nothing happened to me, Claire." I looked around the small apartment. I finally started happening to myself. She didn't respond. After the call ended, I sat alone for a long time. Then my email notification appeared. Miriam had sent the results of our latest test. The system has exceeded our original efficiency target by 18%. I stared at the number. For years, I had believed my life was ending because the woman I loved chose another man. I was beginning to understand that perhaps my life had only been waiting for me to stop standing in her shadow. 3 months later, our company filed the first patent. And that was the moment the world began to notice my name, including Claire. The patent changed everything faster than I expected. One morning, I was an engineer whose work barely anyone noticed. 6 months later, my name was attached to a technology that several major energy companies wanted a license. But success did not arrive like fireworks. It arrived as long nights, failed negotiations, awkward interviews, and the uncomfortable realization that people who had ignored me suddenly remembered my phone number. Miriam warned me about that. "Don't mistake attention for respect," she said. I nodded. "I won't." I thought I understood her. Then Claire called. She had been quiet for almost 3 weeks. When I answered, I heard traffic behind her. "Ethan." "Yes." "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Did you know this was going to happen?" I frowned. "What?" "Your company." The patent. The investors. No. She laughed weakly. You always do this. Do what? Pretend everything is simple. I leaned back in my chair. Claire, I worked on this for years. You knew I was an engineer. I knew you worked. You never asked what I was working on. Silence. That sentence hurt her. It hurt me too, because it was true. During our relationship, Claire had asked me countless questions about rent, groceries, travel, family, and wedding plans. Almost never about my dreams. I had convinced myself that wasn't important. Now I knew it was. She finally whispered, I'm proud of you. Thank you. I mean it. I believe you. Daniel isn't like you. I didn't answer. She continued. He cares about how things look. I looked down at the patent certificate on my desk. Claire, don't compare us. Why not? Because you chose him. Her breathing became uneven. I made a mistake. I closed my eyes. There it was. The sentence I once would have begged to hear. Instead, I felt only sadness. You need to figure out what that mistake means for you, I said. I already know. No, Ethan, you know you regret choosing Daniel. That's not the same as knowing you want me. She became silent. I continued gently. Maybe you miss the person who always stood beside you. Maybe you miss being understood. Maybe you miss the life you thought you would have. But you can't come back just because the road you chose became difficult. Her voice trembled. Do you really think I'm only coming back because he's failing? I don't know. I love you. Those words used to control my entire world. Now they only made me tired. I loved you too. You don't anymore? I looked through the office window. Outside, our team was testing the latest battery module. I don't know what love means between us anymore. She cried. I didn't comfort her. Not because I wanted her to suffer. Because I had finally understood that sometimes comforting someone meant reopening a wound you had spent months closing. After we hung up, I sat quietly. Then Miriam walked in. Bad news. Old news. She smiled. That sounds worse. It probably is. She placed a file on my desk. Our first rural deployment was approved. I opened it. 30 villages. 30 places where families have been relying on unstable electricity. For the first time, our invention would leave the laboratory and enter people's homes. I smiled. That night, I drove to one of the testing sites. A little girl was sitting beside her mother under a working lamp. She was doing homework. Her mother told me. Before this, she had to stop studying when the power went out. I crouched beside the girl. What do you want to be? She looked at me seriously. An engineer. I laughed. Why? So I can build things that help people. I didn't know why that sentence stayed with me. Maybe because I had once wanted exactly the same thing. Before wedding plans. Before bills. Before trying to become the perfect fiancé. Before I started measuring my worth through someone else's happiness. That evening, I drove home feeling lighter. But when I opened my apartment door, Claire was standing inside. I froze. She looked exhausted. What are you doing here? I needed to see you. You shouldn't have come. I know. Her eyes filled with tears. Ethan, Daniel lied to me. I said nothing. He told me he had built the entire business himself. I already knew. He used my connections, my money, and even my father's name. I looked at her carefully. And she swallowed. And I found something else. My stomach tightened. What? She pulled a folder from her bag. There are documents showing that some of his early designs came from a private research group. She stared at me. And one of the names in the old project records was yours. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I took the folder. The first page contained a list of researchers from university collaboration I had joined years ago. My name was there. So was Daniel's. I turned another page. The technical diagrams were familiar. Not because I had forgotten them. Because I had drawn some of them myself. I looked at Claire. When did you get this? Yesterday. Does Daniel know you have it? No. I closed the folder. You need a lawyer. I don't care about the money. You should. I care about you. I shook my head. Claire, I made the wrong choice. That's not the point. It is to me. No. My voice was firmer than I intended. The point is that you need to protect yourself from whatever Daniel did. This isn't about getting me back. She stared at me. You really won't even consider it. I didn't answer immediately. The old memories returned without permission. Claire asleep on my shoulder during our university exams. Claire standing beside me in the rain after my father's funeral. Claire holding my hand and promising, whatever happens, we'll face it together. I had believed her. Maybe she had believed herself. That was what made the ending so painful. Some promises were sincere when they were made and still became lies later. I don't hate you, I said. She looked at me. But I can't go back. Her lips trembled. Why? Because I spent years trying to become someone you would never leave. I paused. Now I want to become someone who doesn't need to be chosen. She lowered her head. I deserve that. Yes. She looked surprised. I softened my voice. But deserving consequences doesn't mean you deserve to be destroyed. Take this to a lawyer. She stood. At the door, she stopped. Ethan, yes. If I had chosen you that night, I knew what she was going to ask. Would everything have been different? Would we have been happy? Would I have forgiven her? I shook my head. We don't get to live the life we almost had. She cried silently. Then she left. I watched the door close. For the first time, I didn't feel tempted to run after her. 3 weeks later, Daniel's company came under investigation. The problem wasn't simply that he had taken credit for other people's work. He had presented several disputed designs to investors as original developments. Once the records were examined, the inconsistencies became impossible to hide. His investors withdrew. His company lost its largest contract. Then his father-in-law demanded an explanation. Claire moved out. I heard all of this through Miriam, not because I was following Claire, because our company had become one of the organizations asked to provide technical records. My name appeared in the investigation, and suddenly, the man Claire had chosen over me was being forced to explain why he had benefited from work he couldn't prove he had created. I refused to celebrate. A man's collapse wasn't my victory. My victory was the fact that I no longer needed it. Then something unexpected happened. A major international energy group offered to acquire our company. Miriam called me into her office. They want you to become head of advanced systems. I stared at the offer. That sounds terrifying. It is. How much control would I have? Enough to build the next generation. I looked at the figures. It was more money than I had ever imagined earning. But the position would mean leaving the small team that had believed in me when nobody knew my name. I asked Miriam, what would you do? She smiled. I would ask what the 19-year-old version of me wanted. That night, I returned to the university library, the same library where I had first met Claire. The building looked smaller. I sat on the same bench. 7 years earlier, I had helped a girl pick up her books. She had called me decent. I had thought being decent meant giving everything I had to the people I loved. Now I understood something else. Being decent also meant refusing to abandon yourself. My phone buzzed. A message from Claire. I know I have no right to ask, but can I see you one last time? I stared at the screen. Then I typed, one last time. Not because I wanted her back, because some chapters deserved to end with the truth. And I had a feeling that when we met again, she would finally understand why losing me had hurt so much. Not because I had become successful, but because I had stopped waiting for her to realize my worth. Claire chose a quiet cafe near the university. When I arrived, she was already sitting by the window. For a moment, neither of us spoke. She looked different, not dramatically, just tired. The confidence she once carried so easily had disappeared. Her hair was tied back, and there were dark circles beneath her eyes. She stood when she saw me. Hi. I sat across from her. She looked at me for several seconds. You really changed. I think I finally stopped pretending. She smiled sadly. I deserve that. You don't have to punish yourself forever. I know. She looked down at her coffee. I just don't know how to stop thinking about that night. I knew exactly which night she meant. The restaurant. The ring. Daniel waiting nearby. Her choosing him. I thought you'd fight, she whispered. I almost did. Why didn't you? Because you weren't asking me to fight for our relationship. I paused. You were asking me to compete with another man. Her eyes filled. I was confused. I believe you. I thought Daniel could give me a better life. I nodded. And now I know I was measuring the wrong things. She looked toward the window. Do you remember when we were 22? I smiled faintly. You failed your economics exam. You remember that? You cried for 3 hours. I did not cry for 3 hours. 2.5. She laughed. It was the first real laugh I'd heard from her in months. For a second, We were young again. Then the memory faded. She said quietly, "You stayed up all night helping me study. You passed. Barely. You passed." She smiled. Then her expression changed. "You always made me feel safe." I looked at her, and I took that for granted. I didn't deny it. She reached across the table. I didn't take her hand. Her fingers stopped halfway. She withdrew them. "Understand," she whispered. That was the first time I saw true acceptance in her eyes. Not acceptance that she had lost me. Acceptance that I had the right to leave. "Are you happy?" she asked. I thought about it. Yes. The answer surprised even me. Not because my life was perfect. It wasn't. We were still struggling with production costs. Our expansion plan had been delayed. I still worked until midnight sometimes. But every problem belonged to the life I had chosen. "Yes," I repeated. "I am." She nodded. "I hope you stay happy." "I hope you do too." We said goodbye outside the cafe. She hugged me. I hesitated, then returned the hug. It was brief. There was no promise hidden inside it. When we separated, I knew something had ended. Not our memories. Those would always exist. But the expectation that one day we might become what we had once been. I walked away without looking back. 3 months later, our company opened its first major manufacturing facility. The acquisition offer was still on the table, but I had decided not to sell. Instead, I became Chief Technology Officer and kept a controlling stake. The choice surprised everyone. It surprised me too. I wasn't chasing money anymore. I wanted to build something meaningful. Our next project was designed for remote clinics. Small hospitals in isolated areas needed reliable energy for refrigeration, medical equipment, and emergency lighting. We adapted our system. The work became personal. I remembered the little girl doing homework under our first rural installation. I wanted children like her to grow up believing their circumstances were temporary, not permanent. Then I met Maya. She was the director of a nonprofit organization that partnered with us on the clinic project. Our first meeting lasted 20 minutes. She spent 19 of those minutes arguing with me. "This battery system is too expensive for the communities you're targeting," she said. I blinked. "That's your opening sentence?" "Yes." I expected hello. "Hello. Your system is too expensive." I laughed. She didn't. Then she showed me her numbers. She was right. Our technology was efficient, but the deployment model wasn't sustainable. I spent the next 2 weeks redesigning it. Maya came back. "You listened." "I usually do. Not to people who challenge you." I smiled. "I'm learning." She studied me. "You're not what I expected." That's becoming a common complaint. She laughed. It was easy with her. That was what frightened me. With Claire, love had always felt like something I needed to protect. With Maya, conversation felt like breathing. I didn't rush it. Neither did she. We worked together. We argued. We ate terrible takeout after late meetings. She learned that I hated cilantro. I learned that she drank coffee so strong it could probably strip paint. One evening, we sat outside the office after a long deployment. She asked, "What are you afraid of?" I thought for a moment. Becoming dependent on someone again. She nodded. "That's honest. What about you?" "Choosing someone who doesn't know how to choose me." I looked at her. She smiled. "Don't worry. I'm not proposing." I laughed, but something inside me shifted. For the first time since Claire, I wasn't thinking about whether I was enough. I was wondering whether someone else might be enough for me. Maya never asked about Claire directly. She knew there had been someone. She simply never forced me to explain. That made me trust her. One rainy evening, we were driving back from a rural clinic when she said, You don't have to keep proving that you don't need anyone." I glanced at her. "What makes you think I'm doing that?" "Because every time someone gets close to you, you become more independent." I laughed. "That sounds like a compliment." "It isn't." She looked out the window. "Independence is good. Walls aren't." I didn't answer, because she was right. I had spent so much time learning not to need Claire that I had nearly convinced myself needing anyone was weakness. Maya never tried to break those walls. She simply stood outside them and waited. Slowly, I let her in. Not all at once. A little at a time. I told her about my childhood. My father had repaired farm equipment. My mother taught literature. They didn't have much money, but our house was always full of books and broken machines. My father used to tell me, if something is broken, don't ask who's to blame first. Ask whether it can be fixed. I had forgotten that. Maybe because I had spent years trying to fix a relationship that no longer wanted repair. Maya listened. Then she said, "Your father sounds wise." He was. Were you? Not particularly. She smiled. "You're learning." That became our joke. Whenever I made a mistake, she would say, "Still learning." And somehow I never felt judged. Meanwhile, Claire was rebuilding her own life. She had left Daniel. Her father's company had cut ties with him after the investigation. Daniel eventually admitted to using research materials he had no right to claim. The consequences were serious but ordinary. He lost investors. He lost his position. He faced legal claims. He had to repay part of the money obtained through false representations. There was no dramatic prison sentence. No public humiliation orchestrated by me. Just the slow consequences of decisions he had made. Claire returned to work. She started managing a small community development program. It wasn't glamorous, but she seemed calmer. Then, one afternoon, I received an unexpected invitation. A university had nominated our company for an innovation award. The ceremony was held in the same city where Claire and I had met. Maya attended with me. We were standing near the entrance when I heard a familiar voice. "Ethan." I turned. Claire stood there. She looked at Maya, then back at me. For a moment, nobody spoke. Maya understood immediately. She stepped beside me, but didn't touch me. Claire noticed. Her eyes lowered. "You two. We're together," I said. She nodded slowly. "I see." Maya smiled politely. "It's nice to meet you." "You too." Claire looked at me again. "I wanted to tell you something." "Go ahead." I used to think I regretted choosing Daniel because he turned out to be a terrible man. I said nothing. But that's not the whole truth. Her voice shook. "I regret choosing against you." Maya looked away, giving us privacy. Claire continued. "You didn't lose me because Daniel was better." She swallowed. "You lost me because I stopped recognizing the person who had been beside me all those years." I felt something loosen in my chest. Not pain. Something closer to peace. "I was so focused on what I thought I deserved," she said, "that I forgot to appreciate what I already had." I answered quietly, "Claire, you didn't know me forever." "I know, and I don't owe you another chance." "I know." She smiled sadly. "That took me a long time to understand." I nodded. Then she surprised me. "I'm glad you met her." I looked at Maya. She was watching us calmly. "Me too." Claire stepped back. "I hope you build everything you wanted." "I will." She smiled. "Goodbye, Ethan." "Goodbye, Claire." This time, when she walked away, I didn't feel the need to watch her disappear. I turned toward Maya. She held out her hand. "Come on." "Where?" "The ceremony." I took her hand, and as we walked inside, I realized something important. The woman from my past had finally stopped asking me to return. And the woman beside me had never once asked me to prove that I would stay. That difference was everything. The awards ceremony should have been the happiest night of my life. Instead, it became the night I learned that success could bring back ghosts you thought were gone. Our company won the Innovation Award. When my name was called, the applause seemed to come from everywhere. I walked onto the stage and accepted the trophy. The host asked, "What inspired this technology?" I looked toward the audience. Maya was smiling. For a second, I thought about my father. Then the little girl doing homework under our first rural installation. Then Claire, not with bitterness, just as a memory. I answered, I wanted to build something useful, something that could make an ordinary person's life a little easier. The audience applauded again. Afterward, reporters surrounded me. Questions came quickly. "What is your next project? Are you expanding internationally? Will you sell the company?" I answered calmly. Then one reporter asked, "Your former fiancé was reportedly connected to Daniel Bennett during the period when his company used disputed technology. Did your personal history influence the investigation?" The room went quiet. I felt Maya move closer. I looked directly at the reporter. "My personal relationships have nothing to do with the facts of a business investigation." He pressed. "But you knew her before the investigation." "Yes." "Do you still speak to her?" I smiled politely. "That isn't relevant to the work." The next morning, the interview was everywhere. Some people praised my professionalism. Others called me cold. I didn't care. But Claire saw the interview. She sent one message. Thank you for protecting my dignity when you had every reason not to. I replied, you didn't need me to protect you. You handled your own consequences. She never responded. A month passed. Our company began preparing for international expansion. I spent most of my time traveling between manufacturing sites. Maya traveled with me when her nonprofit had projects nearby. Our relationship became more serious without either of us announcing it. One evening, she asked, "Are you afraid?" "Of what?" "Of loving me." I looked at her. "Yes." She smiled. "Good. That isn't the answer I expected. People who aren't afraid of love usually don't understand what it costs." I laughed. "You're strange." "I know." She leaned against my shoulder. "But I'm not Claire." The sentence made me stiffen. She immediately sat up. "I shouldn't have said that." "No." I looked at her. "It's okay." She shook her head. "I don't want to become the woman you chose because another woman hurt you." That stopped me. She continued, "If you love me, I want it to be because of me." I reached for her hand. "It is." "Are you sure?" I nodded. "For the first time, I don't feel like I'm trying to replace anything." She looked at me. "Then we're okay." We were, until I received a letter from Claire's father. He wanted to meet. I almost refused. Then I read the final sentence. "There is something about your old research agreement you need to know." I agreed. We met at his office. He looked older than I remembered. "I owe you an apology," he said. "You don't owe me anything." "I do." He opened a file. "Years ago, when you were working on a university research project with Daniel, my company considered investing in your research." I frowned. "I never knew that." "We withdrew the offer." "Why?" He hesitated. "Because Daniel convinced us your technology was too theoretical." I stared at him. "That decision cost you a great deal of money." He nodded. "But that's not why I called you." He pushed another document across the desk. It was an internal report. Daniel had described my research as incomplete. He had recommended that the company stop communicating with me. And then, several months later, Daniel had used concepts from that same research in his own presentation. I read the report twice. "You knew." I suspected. "You said nothing." "I was protecting my daughter." I closed the folder. "You protected her from the truth." He looked ashamed. "I thought you would eventually marry her." "I didn't want to destroy that." I stood. "You didn't destroy it." He looked at me. "Claire did." The words were harsh, but true. I walked toward the door. "Ethan." I stopped. "I know I can't repair what happened." "No." He swallowed. "But I hope one day you can forgive us." I looked back. "I already have." He seemed surprised. "Forgiveness isn't the same as giving people access to me again." I left. Outside, Maya was waiting in the car. She took one look at my face. "What happened?" I handed her the folder. She read it. Then she said, "You were underestimated long before Claire chose Daniel." I nodded. "Apparently." She gave the folder back. "Maybe that's why you're so determined never to underestimate yourself again." I smiled. "Maybe." But that night, I couldn't sleep. Because one question kept returning. If I had known all those years ago that my work would eventually become valuable, would Claire have chosen me? And then I realized I had finally asked the wrong question. The right question was, would I have wanted someone who only recognized my value after everyone else did? The answer was no. A year after Claire left me, I returned to the university for the first time as a guest lecturer. Standing in front of those students felt strange. I had once sat in those seats believing my future would be decided by a promotion, a wedding, and a stable apartment. Now I was speaking about innovation, failure, and a self-belief. A student raised his hand. "Sir, what was your biggest mistake?" I almost laughed. There were too many answers. I stayed too long in a place where I had to keep proving I belonged. The room became quiet. The student asked, "How did you know when to leave?" I thought about the restaurant. Claire's voice. Daniel waiting. The ring in my pocket. "I didn't know," I said. I simply reached a point where staying required me to betray myself. The class remained silent. After the lecture, a professor approached me. "You become very good at this. Speaking, understanding people." I smiled. I learned the expensive way. That evening, Maya and I walked across campus. We passed the library. I stopped. This is where I met Claire. Maya didn't react badly. She simply asked, "Do you want to go inside?" I shook my head. "No." "Why?" "Because I don't need to rewrite the memory." She looked at me. It happened. Yes. And you're okay with it? I nodded. I don't want to erase the person I was. She smiled. That might be the healthiest thing you've ever said. I looked at her. You're getting dangerously good at compliments. Don't get used to it. We laughed. Then I noticed something in the distance. Claire. She was standing near the university gate. She hadn't come to see me. At least, that's what I assumed. When she saw us, she approached slowly. Congratulations, she said. Thank you. I heard about the lecture. Who told you? She smiled. Everyone knows your name now. I shook my head. That sounds strange. It should. She looked at Maya, then at me. I came because I wanted to return something. She opened her handbag. It was a small wooden box. My heart stopped. I recognized it immediately. Inside was the old watch my father had given me when I graduated. I had thought it was lost years ago. You kept this. Claire nodded. You gave it to me when my mother was sick. You said you didn't want to lose it because it reminded you of him. I remembered. I had forgotten that she still had it. I found it when I moved. She handed it to me. I should have returned it sooner. I took the box. Thank you. She looked at Maya. You're lucky. Maya smiled. I know. Claire laughed softly. Then she looked at me. I used to think losing you would be temporary. I said nothing. I thought you'd get angry, disappear for a while, then come back. I know. I didn't understand that someone can leave without hating you. Her eyes filled. I understand now. I nodded. She took a breath. I'm not asking you to come back. That sentence mattered. Good. She smiled sadly. I'm finally learning. We stood there quietly. Then she said, I hope you have a family someday. I looked at Maya. I think I will. Claire nodded. Then I'm glad. She walked away. Maya waited until Claire was gone. You okay? I looked at the wooden box. Yeah. You're sure? I smiled. She's part of my history. Maya took my hand. And I'm your present? I squeezed her fingers. You're my choice. She stopped walking. I turned toward her. What? You've never said that before. I know. She smiled. Then she kissed me. It wasn't dramatic. No audience. No music. No perfect sunset. Just two people standing beside an old university building, choosing each other without pressure. Later that night, I placed my father's watch on my desk. It had stopped years ago. I took it to a repair shop. The watchmaker opened the back and said, It's fixable. I smiled. Are you sure? He nodded. Most things are, if you don't mind being patient. I looked at the watch. For years, I had thought my life had been broken when Claire chose someone else. But maybe nothing had broken. Maybe I'd simply been forced to stop repairing the wrong thing. And for the first time, I was building a future that didn't depend on whether anyone from my past regretted losing me. 3 years passed. By then, people who had once called me ordinary were calling me successful. Our technology was operating in hospitals, schools, and remote communities across several countries. The company had grown from a small laboratory into an international organization. But my favorite place was still the first rural clinic we had powered. Every year, I returned there. The little girl who had once told me she wanted to become an engineer was now 14. Her name was Lena. She met me outside the clinic carrying a stack of textbooks. You came back. I promised. You're late. I laughed. You're 14 and already criticizing the person who pays for your school? You taught me not to accept bad service. That was not what I meant. She grinned. Her mother came outside. She's been waiting all morning. Lena held up her report card. I'm first in my class. I looked at it. You're incredible. She shrugged. I want to study engineering. I know. Can I apply for your scholarship? You'd better. Her smile was enormous. That moment mattered more to me than any award. Because once, I had believed success meant proving Claire had made the wrong choice. Now I understood that success meant creating something that continued helping people even when nobody remembered why I started. Maya and I were engaged. The proposal was simple. No expensive restaurant. No audience. I took her to the first clinic. She knew exactly why. I handed her a small box. She opened it. Inside was a ring. She stared at me. Are you serious? Yes. You know I'm going to say yes. I was hoping. She laughed. Then she asked, Are you sure you're ready? I smiled. I've never been more sure of anything. Our wedding was planned for the following spring. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of forever. Not because I believed forever was guaranteed, Because I understood that love wasn't a contract promising nobody would ever change. It was a daily decision to remain honest, respectful, and free. Then Daniel appeared again. Not directly. His lawyers contacted our company. He claimed that part of our technology was derived from research he had contributed to years earlier. The claim was weak, but it was serious enough to require legal review. Miriam looked at me. Do you want to settle? No. Why? Because if he's right, he deserves credit. If he's wrong, I won't pay him for something he didn't create. The investigation began. Old university records were examined. Emails were recovered. Research notebooks were compared. And one fact became undeniable. Daniel had contributed to the early project. But the core architecture of the system had been developed independently by me after he left the research group. The university confirmed it. Daniel's claim collapsed. He had to withdraw it. This time, I felt no satisfaction, only exhaustion. That evening, Claire called. I heard. Yes. Daniel won't stop. I know. She sighed. I tried to convince him. Claire, you don't have to protect me. I know. Then why? She paused. Because once upon a time, you protected me even when I didn't deserve it. I leaned back. Don't carry that debt. I don't. Then what is it? She answered softly. Maybe gratitude. I smiled. That's allowed. There was silence. Then she said, I'm getting married. I sat up. Really? Yes. To whom? Someone I met through the community program. I smiled. That's good. I was afraid you'd be upset. Why would I be? Because it means I'm moving on. I laughed gently. Claire, I've been moved on for years. She laughed too. Then she said, I'm happy for you, Ethan. Thank you. I mean it. I know. After he hung up, I told Maya. She smiled. Good. You're not jealous? No. Why? Because I trust you. Those 4 words felt heavier than any declaration of love. Trust. The thing I had once given away too easily. The thing I had learned to value only after losing it. A week later, Claire invited Maya and me to dinner. I almost declined. Maya accepted. Claire arrived with her fiancé. His name was Julian. He was a school administrator. He wasn't wealthy. He wasn't famous. He wasn't particularly impressive on paper. But when Claire spoke, he listened. When she made a joke, he laughed. When she became nervous, he reached for her hand. I watched them, and I realized Claire had finally learned what she had once overlooked. She hadn't needed a more impressive man. She had needed to become capable of appreciating an ordinary kind of love. After dinner, Claire and I spoke privately. I was wrong, she said. I know. She smiled. You don't even argue anymore. I learned that some arguments only keep people connected. She nodded. Then she asked, if you could go back to that restaurant. She stopped. I waited. What would you do differently? I thought about it. Nothing. She looked surprised. Nothing. I would still let you choose. Her eyes filled, even knowing how much it would hurt. Yes. Why? Because love without freedom isn't love. She looked down. I wish I understood that then. So do I. She smiled through tears. But maybe we needed to lose each other. I nodded. Maybe. We returned to the others. Maya was waiting for me. She didn't ask what Claire and I had discussed. She simply took my hand, and I realized I no longer needed to hide my past from the person I loved. My past wasn't a threat to my future anymore. The wedding took place 6 months later. Not mine. Claire's. Maya and I attended. It was strange seeing her walk toward someone else. Once, I had imagined that scene with myself waiting at the end of the aisle. But the image no longer hurt. Claire looked happy. Julian looked nervous. During the reception, Claire approached me. Thank you for coming. Of course. She looked at Maya. You both look happy. We are. She smiled. I wanted to tell you something. Go ahead. When I chose Daniel, I thought I was choosing a better future. She looked toward her husband. I was actually choosing an image of a future. I nodded. And when I lost you, I thought I had lost the best man in my life. She paused. But that's not right either. I looked at her. You didn't lose the best man. She smiled. You lost the man who was right for me. I felt my throat tighten. That took courage to admit. It took 3 years. Still counts. She laughed. Then she hugged me. This time, there was no unfinished feeling. Just gratitude. When she stepped away, Maya slipped her hand into mine. Claire looked at her. Take care of him. Maya smiled. He takes care of himself now. Claire laughed. That he does. Later that night, while driving home, Maya rested her head against the seat. You know what I like about you? What? You don't need anyone to lose for you to win. I smiled. I didn't always understand that. I know. She took my hand. But you do now. I squeezed it. The next year, we had a daughter. We named her Elena. When I first held her, I understood something I hadn't expected. My life had become bigger than the question of who chose me. I wasn't someone's abandoned fiancé anymore. I wasn't the engineer who had been underestimated. I wasn't even the businessman who built a successful company. I was a father, a husband, a son, a friend, a person whose worth had nothing to do with who regretted losing him. Years later, Elena asked me about the old watch sitting in my study. Daddy, why you keep that broken watch? I smiled. It isn't broken anymore. She looked confused. But it doesn't work. I picked it up. It works. No, it doesn't. I laughed. Your mother would agree with you. Maya called from a doorway. Your father is terrible at explaining things. I looked at my daughter. This watch belonged to my father. Was he special? Very. What happened to him? He taught me that broken things can sometimes be repaired. Elena looked at the watch. Then why did you say you couldn't fix your old relationship? Maya raised an eyebrow. I stared at my daughter. Who told you about that? Mom. Maya. She laughed. I didn't tell her anything. I looked at Elena. Sometimes something is not broken. Then what? Sometimes it simply isn't meant to be repaired. She thought about that. Like a toy. Sometimes. Like people. I smiled. Sometimes. She nodded as if she understood everything. Children have a way of making complicated truths sound simple. That night, after Elena went to sleep, Maya and I stood on the balcony. She leaned against me. Do you ever think about Claire? I answered honestly. Sometimes. Do you miss her? No, not even a little. I thought about it. I miss who we were. Maya nodded. That's different. Very. I looked toward the city lights. There was a time when I had believed the greatest punishment I could give Claire was becoming successful enough that she would regret leaving. But success didn't punish her. It freed me. Her regret was simply something she had to live with. My life was something I got to live. That distinction changed everything. A few months later, I received a handwritten letter from Claire. She wrote that she and Julian had adopted a little boy. She said she had finally built the kind of home she once thought money could buy. At the end, she wrote, "Thank you for letting me choose. I finally understand that was the greatest kindness you ever gave me." I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. Not because I wanted to keep the past alive, because I no longer needed to destroy it. Some memories deserve to remain where they belong. Behind us. I looked at Maya. She smiled. Dinner. Absolutely. I followed her into the kitchen. Elena came running down the hallway. Daddy, Mom burned the bread. Maya shouted. I did not. I laughed. The house was loud, messy, warm, ordinary, and I realized this was the life I had once been too afraid to imagine. Not a life where everyone regretted hurting me. A life where nobody needed to. I had finally stopped asking who would choose me. I had chosen myself. And then, somehow, the right people chose me too. 10 years after Claire chose Daniel, I returned to the restaurant where everything had ended. The place looked smaller than I remembered. The same warm lights. The same narrow windows. Even the table near the corner was still there. Maya stood beside me. Are you sure you want to come in? I smiled. Yes. Why? Because I used to think this place took something from me. And now I think it gave something back. She squeezed my hand. We went inside. Our daughter Elena was with her grandparents that evening. So for once we had the restaurant to ourselves. The waiter brought us menus. I looked around. 10 years earlier, I had sat here with a ring in my pocket, watching the woman I loved choose another man. Tonight, I was sitting beside the woman who had never once made me question whether I was worth choosing. The contrast was almost unbelievable. Maya noticed me staring. You're remembering. Yes. Does it hurt? I thought carefully. No. Not even a little. No. I smiled. I think some wounds stop hurting when you stop touching them. She rested her head against my shoulder. Then I saw Claire. She was standing near the entrance. For a moment, I wondered whether I had imagined her. But she smiled. Ethan. I stood. Claire. She was alone, older, calmer, and somehow more comfortable in her own skin. She walked toward us. May I sit? I looked at Maya. Maya nodded. Claire took the chair opposite us. I didn't know you'd be here. Neither did I. She laughed softly. I suppose this place has a sense of humor. How are you? Good. She meant it. That made me happy. Julian? Working. And your son? 16 now. That's hard to believe. He's taller than me. I laughed. Claire smiled. For several minutes, we talked about ordinary things. Children, work, travel, life. No accusations. No old wounds being reopened. Then Claire became quiet. I want to tell you something for years. I waited. When I chose Daniel, I thought you would always be there. I know. I thought you loved me enough to forgive anything. I looked at her. I did love you enough to forgive. She lowered her eyes. But forgiveness isn't the same as staying. No. She nodded. I understand that now. Maya remained quiet. Claire looked at her. You know, I used to be jealous of you. Maya raised an eyebrow. Why? Because you got the version of Ethan I should have appreciated. I smiled. Maya answered gently. You didn't lose him because I found him. Claire looked at her. You lost him because you stopped seeing him. Silence filled the table. Maya immediately softened. I'm sorry. That sounded harsh. Claire shook her head. No. She smiled. It's true. I looked at both women. One belonged to the chapter that taught me what heartbreak felt like. The other belonged to the life that taught me what peace felt like. I realized I didn't need to choose between forgiving my past and loving my present. I could do both. Claire reached in her purse. She placed a small envelope on the table. What is this? A letter. For me? Yes. Why now? Because I don't want to leave anything unsaid. I took it. Do I need to read it now? No. She stood. Read it when you want. She turned to leave. Then stopped. Ethan. Yes. Thank you for not becoming cruel. Her voice shook. After everything I did, you had every reason to hate me. I smiled. I did hate what happened. She waited. But I didn't want to become someone I wouldn't respect just because you hurt me. Her eyes filled. That was always your strength. No. I looked at Maya. My strength was learning that I didn't have to prove anything anymore. Claire nodded. Then she walked away. I watched her leave. Not with longing. Not with anger. Just peace. I opened Claire's letter that night. It was only 2 pages. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't ask me to return. She didn't even apologize repeatedly. She simply wrote about the person she had been. She admitted that she had mistaken comfort for weakness and confidence for superiority. She wrote that Daniel had not ruined her life. Her own choices had. But she also wrote something that stayed with me. You were the first person who loved me without trying to own me. I was too immature to understand what that meant. I folded the letter. Then I placed it beside my father's repaired watch. The watch was ticking. Slowly, steadily, like time had never stopped at all. The next morning, I took Elena to school. She was 16 by then. She had inherited Maya's stubbornness and my habit of taking apart anything mechanical. She wanted to become an engineer. Sometimes life really did have a sense of humor. Dad, are you proud of me? I looked at her. More than you know. Even if I don't become an engineer? Of course. Then why do you always encourage me to study? Because I want you to discover what you're capable of. She thought about that. Not because you want me to be successful. Success is useful. I smiled. But knowing who you are is more important. She nodded. Then she asked the question I knew would eventually come. Did you always know what you wanted? I laughed. No. What changed? I thought about the restaurant. Claire. Daniel. The ring. The years afterward. I learned that sometimes losing something is the beginning of finding yourself. She looked at me. That sounds sad. It wasn't. I smiled. It was necessary. Years later, our company established a scholarship foundation. We named it after my parents. The foundation funded engineering education for students from communities where our energy systems had been deployed. Lena became one of our first scholarship recipients. She eventually studied electrical engineering. At her graduation, she hugged me and said, "You kept your promise." I smiled. So did you. She became an engineer, then a researcher, then she joined our company. Seeing her reminded me of the boy I had once been. Quiet, curious, certain that if he worked hard enough, everything would eventually make sense. Life had taught me otherwise. Hard work didn't guarantee fairness. Love didn't guarantee permanence. Being good didn't guarantee that people would choose you. But none of those truths meant you should become bitter. They meant you should become wiser. Claire and I never became close friends. We didn't need to. She had her family. I had mine. Occasionally, we exchanged holiday messages. Sometimes our children met. There was no secret longing, no unfinished romance. Just two adults who had once loved each other and eventually learned how to let that love become a memory. Daniel disappeared from our lives. His company was gone. He worked as a consultant for smaller firms. I heard once that he had finally admitted to himself that he had spent years trying to look successful instead of becoming useful. I never contacted him. I didn't need to. His consequences belonged to him. Mine belonged to me. One evening, many years after that restaurant dinner, Maya and I sat on our porch. The house was quiet. Our children had gone to bed. She asked, "If you could change one thing about your past, what would it be?" I looked at the stars. I would tell my younger self to stop begging for certainty. She smiled. "That's all." Yes. Not Claire. No. Not Daniel. No. I took her hand. I wouldn't change the pain. She looked surprised. Why? Because without it, I might never have learned the difference between being loved and being valued. She rested her head against my shoulder. And now, I kissed her forehead. Now I know. There was a time when I thought the greatest revenge would be watching Claire regret choosing another man. I was wrong. Her regret was never the point. The point was that she had been free to choose. And so was I. She chose the life she wanted. I chose mine. She had to live with her decision. I had to build something for mine. And I did. I built a company. I built a family. I built a purpose. But most importantly, I built a version of myself who no longer measured his worth by someone else's decision. If Claire had chosen me that night, perhaps we would have stayed together. Perhaps we would have been happy. Perhaps we would have eventually fallen apart anyway. I'll never know. And I don't need to. Because the question that once haunted me, why wasn't I enough, eventually became something else. Why did I ever believe someone else's choice could decide my worth? I don't hate Claire. I don't hate Daniel. I don't hate the man I used to be. I understand all of them. And that is enough. Because sometimes the strongest ending isn't revenge. It isn't watching someone beg. It isn't proving they made the wrong choice. Sometimes the strongest ending is much quieter. You walk away. You heal. You build. You love again. And one day, you realize the person who rejected you is no longer the person whose approval you want. You finally understand that you didn't lose your life when they left. You lost the life you thought you needed. And in its place, you built one that was truly yours. I looked at Maya. She smiled. "What's on your mind?" I smiled back. "Nothing." She laughed. "After all these years, I still don't believe you." I pulled her closer. "Then I'll tell you." "What?" I looked toward the warm lights of our house. "Our life." She smiled. "Our life." And for the first time, I knew exactly what I meant. Not the life Claire rejected. Not the life Daniel interrupted. Not the life I once imagined. This one, the one I chose. The one I built. The one I no longer needed anyone else to validate. And that was the moment I finally understood. I hadn't won because the woman who left me regretted it too late. I won because by the time she regretted it, I no longer needed her to come back.